item response theory does not come without its disadvantages also. One of the major advantages is that we have to develop the mathematics to create a similar scale for people and items. And having that, it can be very difficult to explain your results. The next major piece is that because of how mathematically rigorous and flexible IRT is, we have to defend what we choose to use. And so the two major pieces are the complexity of explaining and the complexity of justifying. So what do we mean by this? Complexity. Explaining IRT. Explaining IRT results can be really difficult. It's hard to describe without getting into the mathematics of IRT. How do we put people and items on the same scale? What does that mean, especially in a context of children and giving assessments where most people are familiar with how many questions someone got right or wrong. In item response theory, that doesn't exactly map onto the score individuals receive. And so how do you explain that two people that may have gotten the same number of questions right could have possibly gotten a different score? Well, that can occur because of the complex mathematics underneath item response theory, where different items are weighted differently depending on the area or the region that an item will measures most precisely. So explaining the results is a big part of the complexity of IRT. Because one of the powerful parts of IRT is placing items and people on the same scale, but that also comes at the disadvantage of having to really kind of bend over backwards to explain why that's appropriate. The next major complex issue with IRT is how flexible the math is. Because we can be very flexible in how we define what that probability of response is based on a whole host of different parameters, we also have to say what those different parameters are. So justifying why do we need a discrimination parameter? Or why do we need an item difficulty? Or a lower asymptote / guessing. So why do we need those? And so being able to justify these different parameters and the purposes of those different parameters is a major disadvantage of item response theory. There is a lot of amazing theoretical work as to why these different parameterizations are useful in different contexts, but it can be very difficult without a lot of thought as to why a certain model or why a certain link function is appropriate. So that's the power and disadvantage of having a very flexible mathematics, is that it's, yes, we can do it, but what is the consequence of doing that? And that's a powerful and honestly a difficult thing to reconcile, especially to bosses or advisors, of how do we make these justifications in a sound and rigorous way. That is, again, the power and disadvantage of using the IRT approach.